Well, let's turn tonight to Deuteronomy chapter 4. Deuteronomy chapter 4. We'll begin reading at verse 25 of Deuteronomy chapter 4. When thou shalt beget children and children's children, and ye shall have remained long in the land, and shall corrupt yourselves, and make a graven image, or a likeness of anything, and shall do evil in the sight of the Lord thy God, to provoke him to anger, I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day, that ye shall soon utterly perish from off the land, whereunto ye go over Jordan to possess it. Ye shall not prolong your days upon it, but shall utterly be destroyed. And the Lord shall scatter you among the nations, and ye shall be left few in number among the heathen, whither the Lord shall lead you. And there ye shall serve gods, the work of men's hands, wood and stone, which neither see, nor hear, nor eat, nor smell. But if from thence thou shalt seek the Lord thy God, thou shalt find him, if thou seek him with all thy heart and with all thy soul. When thou art in tribulation, and all these things are come upon thee, even to in the latter days, if thou turn to the Lord thy God, and shall be obedient unto his voice, for the Lord thy God is a merciful God, he will not forsake thee, neither destroy thee, nor forget the covenant of thy fathers, which he sware unto them. Now, there's more that we could probably read here, but for what we're going to consider tonight, we believe that's sufficient. You know, Moses was telling them, he says, now, when you get into the land of Canaan, and you've got a few generations there, and he says, and corrupt yourselves, and make graven images, and do things to provoke God to anger, then there's going to be trouble. There's going to be difficulty. He said, you'll soon be off of the land. You'll be taken off. You're going to perish. He said, he'll scatter you among the heathens. And there you're going to serve gods that you don't know, that you're not acquainted with. And you know, we think about that reading, and part of what we think about as we look around in the present situation, you know, we recognize that in our country, we're a long ways from where we started. Certainly there were many works of God done through the last 200 years, but we've had several generations now that seem to have put their focus in other places. And so we look at it and we recognize that God's not going to overlook stuff in us that he wouldn't overlook in them. God's not going to smile on us when he wouldn't smile on them. But the promise here, I believe, is true. But if from thence you shall seek the Lord thy God, you'll find him. And we look at the troubles of our day, and we could say that. If people will seek the Lord, they'll find him. He's not hiding. He's not trying to be unapproachable. But he says, if you seek him, you'll find him, if you seek him with all your heart and with all your soul. I was reading a thing recently, and the writer there said, you know, he says, I've never seen a soul that could not get through to God if they were earnest about it. Now, he said, I've seen people who could pray flowery prayers. In fact, he said, I don't like to hear flowery prayers. He says they're just, you know, in his eyes they were just a show, just something for put on. But he says, whenever I've seen a person get in earnest with God, he said, I've never seen them not be able to get a hold of him, not be able to find salvation, not be able to come to know God when they sought Him with all their heart and with all their soul. And so it is, if we're going to know God, if we're going to find His help, we need to realize that we must seek the Lord, and we must do it in earnest. It can't be I said a little prayer, why didn't God do something? Well, if we didn't seriously intend what we asked God to do for us and what we said we would do with regard to Him, we shouldn't be surprised if it brings no results. He said, when you're in tribulation and all these things come upon you, even in the latter days, if you'll turn to the Lord and be obedient to His voice, He won't forsake you, because He's a merciful God. God allows things to come upon us, and certainly we can read where the thought is there that God sends some things for our benefit. And we may not always choose them, and it could very well be that every once in a while, after 2 or 3 generations, God's going to have to send something to wake people up to realize that He's still God. He's still in control of things down here, and that the way people are going is unacceptable to Him. Certainly, we think about the way that people are living these days, and it's unacceptable to God. In fact, I would suggest that to a certain quantity, the rest of it's unacceptable. We hear things that growing up, I would have never thought people could have got as far off of the path as what they've gotten in this day and time. But when people can't figure out if I'm a man or a woman or a cat or a dog, when you're supposed to have 60 some different things you could possibly be, now God didn't design that. And God didn't make it that way. And God, in those kind of conditions, I believe, could let some things come along that's not what we might have liked to chose either. And so as we look at this virus and things, one of the observations we'd make, people can think they're smart and they got it all figured out, but God's still God. And what people need in this is God. They can say, well, if we just get a virus, if we can just get something else, virus won't save them. Man's hand will not ultimately be able to save. People need to seek God. And so He's letting us know here that people get themselves in trouble. Societies go down the wrong road. They make bad choices. And God lets them suffer for their bad choices. But He says, if you'll seek the Lord, you'll seek Him with all your heart, you'll find Him. And so God's still there. And we know that God would gladly save people in their sinful condition. God would gladly help them straighten out their lives if they would turn to Him and seek Him with all their heart. Now if we turn to 2 Chronicles, the 7th chapter, in 2 Chronicles chapter 7, and this is where Solomon had built the temple, and Solomon was praying at the dedication, and then after it was over. In 2 Chronicles 7, and beginning at verse 11, thus Solomon finished the house of the Lord, and the king's house, and all that came into Solomon's heart to make in the house of the Lord, and in his own house, he prosperously effected. And the Lord appeared to Solomon by night, and said unto him, I have heard thy prayer, and have chosen this place to myself for an house of sacrifice. If I shut up heaven that there be no rain, or if I command the locusts to devour the land, or I send pestilence among the people, if my people which are called by my name shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Now we think about these words, and he says his eyes will be open and his ears attent unto the prayer that is made in his house. Well, we think about those words. Now here Solomon had finished everything that he set out to do. He had prosperously effected. And so you might say, in one sense, he was kind of approaching the pinnacle of his success. And God appeared to him and says, now listen, I've heard your prayer, and I've chosen this place as a house of sacrifice. He says, and if I shut up heaven, that there's no rain, or the locusts devour the land, or pestilence comes, it says, if my people which are called by my name will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, I'll hear from heaven. I'll forgive their sin and I'll heal their land. Now, you know, we see this, if you're out on Facebook, we see this meme roll by again and again and again. Now, everybody's pointing to this verse and saying, pray. Well, what are you praying for? He didn't say here, pray that the pestilence goes away. But he says, pray and seek my face. And so as we look at the present condition, and I consider what it says here, what needs to be happening is people need to be praying and saying, God, I need you. I need you. What? Keep me from getting sick? No, I need you in my life where you should have been. We realize that many people today, they may claim Christianity at some level, but they're not walking with God. They're not enjoying the presence of God. You can see by the very lives that people are living that they're not walking with God. They have other things that are in reality the gods in their lives. We look around and people are covetous. They're trying to, everyone, make more money than the next one. I got to have a bigger house than the people on the next street. I got to have a more expensive car. I got to have more money. And so they're giving themselves to that. And now, pestilence is around. God, make the pestilence go away. Keep me from getting sick. He didn't say he was looking for that kind of a prayer. He said, if they will pray and seek my face. In other words, the prayer that needs to be going up now, if we're having a national day of prayer, what people should be praying is, God, I need you. Because instead, they'll say, God, do this, give us that. There's no reason for God to give us anything. Particularly when we look at people still hold on to the religion, but they turn their back on God. What goes on in the name of worshiping God sometimes today is more pagan than Christian. Certainly, you hear some of the things that goes on in churches, and it's not focused on God. It's not focused on Him, His righteousness, His commandments, His will, His way, but it's focused on self. I mean, I can't hardly begin to picture it, but they'll have these religious concerts and people are down there dancing and they've not hardly even got clothes on like they need to have, and all claim that that's worshiping God. It's pagan, is what it is. It's not Christian. It's not like Christ. Where do you read about Christ having music and a dance? And people have half their clothes off, and that's going on in the name of religion. Well, praying for the virus to go away is not a solution to the problem. The solution to the problem is people need to turn to God Himself. And certainly those, we'd say this, those that claim to be Christians need to get back to the idea and the understanding, if you're a Christian, you should be like Christ. That's what it means to be a Christian, is to be like Christ. Well, if you're going to be like Christ, the only way that can happen is you need God. We cannot do that on our own. We're not here to propose that people can do that on their own. But the reality is, this applied, that then people may be going, well, God don't answer His promise. No, God answers His promise. When you seek God, you'll find Him. God answers His promise. He says, if they'll seek my face, I'll hear from heaven and will forgive their sin, and I'll heal their land. Well, we hear much about forgiveness today, but not much is healed. People's lives don't change. People are not different. People can get religion very easily. I'll go through this form and ask God to forgive me. But at the same time, they do well to say, God, heal me. You say, well, I'm not physically sick. Well, you're spiritually sick. And we need to understand that Christ came so that we could be healed, that we could walk with God, we could live and serve Him. But instead, we look around, and all around us, people are following the world and the things of the world, and really don't have time for God. You say, well, I go to church once a week. Back a generation when I came into the world, most people thought you needed to be there about 3 times a week, or maybe more. Back in those days, people loved God enough that sometimes churches would, as I understand it, churches would have their prayer meetings on different nights. So I can go to this, for example, the way I understand it, back in the 50s, people from Mort go to Capitol Hill on Wednesday night, but they had prayer meeting here on Tuesday night, so they could come here if they wanted to. And then there was a small congregation in Norman that had prayer meeting on Thursday night. Yeah. So you could go prayer meeting 3 nights a week if you wanted to. And now people go, Sunday night? Mm-hmm. Sunday night? And I had a preacher tell me. He says, man, people told me they want to have church on Sunday night. So he said, I scheduled church on Sunday night. So I got there. Nobody showed up. And it's kind of like, well, I thought they said they wanted to have church on Sunday night. They didn't show up, so he said, well, obviously they didn't want to come very bad, so he didn't continue having church on Sunday night. And in fact, he asked me about how it was we got people to come to church all the time.
Oh my goodness.
And I told him, I says, well, it's not that we tell them that you're not going to go to heaven if you don't show up at church. But we do kind of expect that if you really love God, you're going to be there. Yeah. And, interesting thing, if that's where your heart's at, that's where you'll be. And so people aren't going to solve this problem just by saying, God, take the virus away. God, solve the economic problems. And God, give us our comfortable, sinful ways back. The problem's going to be solved when people get on their knees and seek God's face and say, God, I need you. And when people get serious about finding God, you know what? Things will change. But things are not going to change just by going through a little bit of ritual prayer and saying, well, I guess we need to pray a little so that God will take the virus away. I believe God will help the situation when people begin to seek His face. And that's what we need to do as people in this time. Certainly we might pray, God, I don't want to see people sickening. I don't want to see people die. And particularly those that are close to us. But at the same time, people need to get a little uncomfortable in their sinful ways. People need to get awakened to the fact that the good things they're enjoying here, they are being, you might say, provided for more than they deserve. And wake up to realize that those things are not a blessing. They're not a blessing to them if it ultimately is going to cause them to be eternally lost. There's a great indifference in our day and time to people's standing with God. A great indifference. People, as we said, they'll say what they call a sinner's prayer, and they'll sign a little thing or something and say, "Now I'm a Christian," and their thinking is, "I'm going to go to heaven and be with the Lord in a better place." But they don't even know if they want to go there because they don't even know Him. We go to heaven to see God. Certainly we put our treasures up there, but our treasures are things that have to do with God. And our thoughts towards heaven should be thoughts towards God. But much of what you hear today, people talk about a better place. It's like God built another world where you can gratify every desire to the greatest extent possible. And that's not what heaven's about. Heaven's about God. It's about being with God. It's about enjoying God. It's about rejoicing in God and what He has done for us. It's about enjoying His presence throughout eternity. Well, if people are going to enjoy God's presence throughout eternity, they need to get to know Him here so that they have that relationship. Certainly, if God allowed sinners to go to heaven, and we know He don't, if God allowed them to go to heaven, they wouldn't be happy there. And we can go read in Isaiah, the 6th chapter. You know what Isaiah said? He came in the presence of God. He saw God high and lifted up, and he said, "Oh, woe is me." Well, why was it, "Oh, woe is me"? Because he said, "I'm a man of unclean lips. I'm a sinful man. I got no business here. I don't fit here." He was concerned that he was going to die, and God sent the angel to take the coal and purge his lips, and then he said, "All right, God, here I am now. Send me." It was a change. But people need to understand, to really apply this passage of Scripture to our situation, it tells us what we ought to be praying for. And that's that we come to know God. That we seek His face. That we seek to know Him. That we turn from our own ways to go in His ways. And He said, "I'll forgive him. I'll hear him. Heal him." He said, "My eyes will be open and my ears will be attent unto the prayer that's made in this place." So when people come before God with the real intent of drawing close to Him, God's ready to hear that prayer. He's ready to respond to that prayer. But when people are just wanting to continue on in their own old sinful ways, just going, gratifying the flesh, just living for the flesh and the world and sin, it's the wrong prayer. It's the wrong prayer. God's not He's not interested in the prayer so I can go on in my sins. He's interested in the prayer so I can get to know Him. And sad to say, we don't see a lot of movement yet in the world about us for people to wake up and see this is a serious sickness. I don't dispute that. It's a serious sickness. A lot of people in some quantity get it and die. And the problem is, we think about the flu, not as many people die percentage-wise, maybe the flu every year. But a lot of people have had the flu before, never had this before. And so it sickens people, and they do die. And we know that's serious, and we know that it's sad to think about people dying, particularly when we think about people dying unprepared to meet God. Unprepared. And why? Because they haven't sought His face. They've been told that if you just turn to God, if you'll just say this little prayer here and turn to God, you'll prosper, you'll be successful, you'll have money, and you can just gratify every desire that you want. No, that's not the way that it works. When we seek God, we're going to seek to gratify God's desire, which is His will. And He calls us to do that, to submit ourselves to His will, and to go in the way that He would have us to do. Now, I believe this is a good thing that was conveyed to Solomon. Sad to say, Solomon, like many today, didn't listen. If we read on down through the chapter, it says if you turn away to other gods, those things, you go to the end of the chapter, and because he forsook the Lord God of his fathers, he built temples to idols. Solomon, because of the strange woman and all of that came to pass, Solomon, his latter end was not a good end. His latter end, he broke the commandment of God. One of the things that God told Moses when He gave him the law, He says, listen, if a man becomes king, he is not to multiply wives up to himself. Solomon had 700. There's not much way you can say that he took heed to that commandment. And they turned his heart away from God. And that's what happens in prosperity. People get into all kinds of foolish and unreasonable desires. And so prosperity can be a danger to our soul. And we need, as people, to realize that if we get off track and we get wrapped up in the things of this life, God may send something like what we're seeing to get us to turn back to God and say, God, yes, I do need you. I need you in my life. I need you to direct me. I need you to help me get over these things that have gotten control of me. Because we see that people get, they start moving up and they get prosperous, and the next thing you know, they're out chasing the things of this life and this world, and they're really not walking with God anymore. They may still hold on to the religion, but they do not enjoy a walk with God whereby they commune with Him and He communes with them. So the warning here is, yes, it invites us to pray. It says, yes, there are things that can come. But when we begin to realize that there's the need to pray, the need is to seek God Himself. Now if we look at Isaiah, the 55th chapter, Isaiah chapter 55. In Isaiah chapter 55, starting at verse 1, he says, Ho, everyone that thirsteth, come ye to the waters, and he that hath no money, come ye, buy and eat, yea, come buy wine and milk without money and without price. Wherefore do you spend money for that which is not bread, and your labor for that which satisfies not? Hearken diligently unto me, and eat ye that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness. Incline your ear and come unto me. Hear, and your soul shall live. And I will make an everlasting covenant with you, even the sure mercies of David. Behold, I have given him for a witness to the people, a leader and commander to the people. Behold, thou shalt call a nation that thou knowest not, and nations that knew not thee shall run unto thee because of the Lord thy God, for the Holy One of Israel, for he hath glorified thee. Seek ye the Lord while he may be found. Call ye upon him while he is near. Let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts. Let him return unto the Lord, and he will have mercy upon him, and to our God, for he will abundantly pardon. So here we see the prophet was speaking to people, and he says, everyone that thirsts, come to the waters. And you don't have to have the means. You don't need money. You can buy and eat, buy without money and without price. And so it is that Jesus came that we could come to God for everything that we need. Spiritually, we could come to him for our help with the things of life. But he asked him, he says, why is it you spend money for that which is not bread? Why are you spending your money on stuff that doesn't feed you? He said you labor for that which doesn't satisfy. He says, hearken diligently and eat ye that which is good, and let your soul delight itself in fatness. You know, we look at the world around us and we could say, well, why are people spending their money for that which is not bread, that which really doesn't feed them? He says, you labor for that which satisfies not. You know, one of the interesting things we observe is this. I remember hearing it when I was working in the world of business. They said, one of the things they said is, your salary is not a satisfier. So, well, I wouldn't come to work if they didn't pay me. But they said, we can give you a raise, and in 2 months it'll be as if you never had it. You're not satisfied again. You're not happy. You're not making enough. It don't go far enough. And so we think about that working for wages. It's kind of saying, you know what? You'll never be satisfied. And you watch people in the world, and they're not. Well, you know, somebody else got a raise, so now I got to have a raise. I can't keep up. Everybody else is keeping up with me. I'm not getting raises fast enough. That's because money really isn't going to satisfy. It doesn't meet the need of the heart. It doesn't meet the need of the soul. It says, incline your ear and come unto me, and your soul shall live. I'll make a covenant with you. You can delight in fatness. You can delight in that which is good. Where's our satisfaction going to be found? Where's our delight going to be found? In God. In God. And so, you know, as we think about the situation now where people can't work, people are stuck at home, and you know, I think part of what people are discovering is they're not really living. You say, what do you mean? Well, I got married. I was going to be happy. We're going to be a family. We're going to, you know, enjoy each other's company. And now you see all these memes out there on social media. I've been homeschooling my kid now for 3 days, and they've already been kicked out of school. Homeschool. Why? Because they haven't built relationships as a family. Everybody's running here and running there, doing this and doing that, and they're chasing after stuff that really don't satisfy. And now all of a sudden they found out that they got to stop all their chasing around, and they found that family they thought they were going to have that would satisfy, it don't satisfy them. And they don't really seemingly enjoy spending time together. relationships are not what they need to be. Well, why is that? In part because they've left out the part that would bring them together, and that's God. You know, the old saying of days gone by was the family that prays together stays together. Why? Because there's something shared that can bring satisfaction, something shared that can bring happiness. And so he's promising the coming of Christ is what he's speaking of here. And he lets them know, he says, look, people will reach out to you. They'll run unto you because of what? Because of the Lord thy God, for the Holy One of Israel, for he has glorified thee. Now, the world, as we go through this rough time, one of the things they need to be able to see is if we're walking with God, we've got something that's getting us through. We've got something that makes a difference. So he said, seek the Lord while he may be found. Call ye upon him while he's near. And I believe in this time, if people will call out to God, they'll find out he's there. They'll find out that he wants to help them. He wants to meet their need. But the trouble is they're going to have to come to the understanding, I'm not just going to cry out for God to solve my problem. I'm going to cry out for God himself to become a part of my life, to become the center of it. He said, let the wicked forsake his way, and the unrighteous man his thoughts, and let him return unto the Lord. And that's really, we look at our land, the covetous nation that we are. We could go on and say, if we look at how people are living, it's an unrighteous life. Say, well, I don't lie, cheat, or steal, but you're not doing the righteous acts that Christ would have you to do. We should see that we're in a world where it's too busy to serve God. We're a world too caught up in our own needs and wants to care about others. He said, let the unrighteous man forsake his thoughts. Let him think about what God wants. Let him think about what God would have him to do. And return to the Lord. And God will have mercy. He will abundantly pardon. Certainly people in this time need to be looking around and examining themselves and asking the question, am I walking with God or am I chasing the world? If we're not walking with God, the instruction is, the teaching is, the point is, seek the Lord while he can be found. As we pray and as we consider all that's going on, it's my realization that this is a time when people need to begin to seek the Lord. And I believe God's allowed something to come on us that makes people have to stop and think about how they're living in life and how it's going to go. And I know people all around us have taken up to the world and they've pretty much shut God out of their mind completely. My prayer is that they'll seek the Lord. That in this, people will be awakened. That people will get stirred. Does that mean we may have to live with this some more? Apparently so. Somebody said we're looking now at the 30th of April instead of the Easter. But, you know, if we have to work through these difficulties so that men will seek God's face, we need to go to God and say, God, give me the grace, give me the strength, give me the help to work through this. And most of all, God, we want to see others seeking your face. That's the real need of the hour. That's the reality of the world we face. That's the situation as it is. God said he'd send pestilence, he'd send other things when people got totally away from him. And he did it with the Israelites. And I believe in a nation that claims to be a Christian nation, he's given us an opportunity to think about, am I walking with God? Am I serving him? Or in reality, have I got other idols that I'm worshiping and other things that I'm chasing after? so that people can wake up and say, I need to get back to God. God, stir our hearts. We're thankful that we can go to Him. We're thankful we can find comfort and strength in Him. But we look at the world around us, and certainly we would like to pray, Lord, you see this mess, we ask that you'd straighten it out. But you know, if it's an opportunity for people to begin to seek God, then my prayer is, God, just help us. Keep your hand over us as your people. And help us to be walking with you, with your glory upon us, so that others will wake up and begin to seek God, instead of just prayers that they can go on in their own sinful ways, gratifying just the desires of the flesh instead of serving God.